Hey everybody, this is JacqBean coming with another review. Let's talk about this Walking Dead finale. We're going to talk about how they concluded and wrapped up storylines, and definitely going to get into that ending with Rick and Michonne that I really needed. So let's get on with the review. Alright, so let's start out with Judith's story. Now, I never really thought, and I'm sure that nobody else thought, that she would die during this episode. You can't kill off Rick's children. He didn't get back to see them yet. So they're in the hospital where we find that there are no doctors or nurses or anyone because Pamela took everyone to the estates, which left nobody there to be able to take care of the people of the Commonwealth if something happened to them. So we see Judith kind of waking up. She's a little groggy, but she sees that Daryl has passed out on the floor. You don't know what happened to him. But she also notices that we have walkers outside the door, and they're all trying to come into the hospital. So she jumps into action, is closing the doors, but she doesn't have the strength. So he's really working, trying to open the door, and of course she can't even get to the lock. So what does she do? With her ingenuity, she just starts to move the tables and stuff in front of the door. And that was so reminiscent of how Shane tried to protect Rick when the walkers were in the hospital and he couldn't move him. And Judith, having lost so much blood, she passes out herself right there with Daryl. Both of them were pretty much out, and we were left to wonder, will someone get there in enough time that they won't be attacked by the walkers? When Daryl gained consciousness, he was in the hospital and Carol was there, and he could see that Judith was on the table. But he also got to look across from him and see the group that came together, Yumiko and Connie Kelly and Magna sitting there, trying to comfort Luke because he had been bitten. And not only had he been bitten, but he got to see Jules being devoured. It was such a terrible kind of death to look at. He knew that he was dying. They just got to try to make him comfortable knowing what was going to happen, and in the end he died and they needed to kill him. So R.I.P. to Luke and to Jules. Daryl knew that they needed to get Judith out of there, and so they started moving the bed around, but every exit that they went to seemed to be just controlled by so many different groups of walkers. They knew that Mercer would probably be the best help for them to get them out of there, to get them to a place where Judith can get some help. But of course, Mercer had already been imprisoned. But Princess and Max came to the rescue and freed Mercer from prison. They got Judith to Tony and knew that their sights had to be put on Pamela at this point. Mercer said, "Let me take care of it. This is not your fight, it's my fight. These are my people in my community. You just get in this truck and go back to Alexandria." Everybody was like, nah. Ezekiel especially was like, "You may not care about these people, but I do. And we should care about them because she's leaving them to the wolves." Everyone agreed with that, and so they all set out to confront Pamela. Maggie was ready for Miss Pamela because she found the biggest gun that I think she could carry and was getting it prepared to make the shot. Negan happened to be around and he was like, "Are you going to use this to shoot Pamela?" And Maggie's face said it all. She didn't have to say anything. Pamela was going down. As everyone was starting to get in position for the confrontation, Maggie looked for her gun and it wasn't there. It was probably the biggest thing in the room. You would have never not been able to see it, but it wasn't there. And so she goes walking out and she sees Negan and he has the gun. Maggie's like, what's up, dude? Are you going to take the shot? And Negan was pretty much like, yeah, I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to kill her. You've been through so much and the community needs you. He also apologized to her about what he did to Glenn and how it has affected her and Herschel. But Maggie wasn't, kind of worrying about that right now. She took that rifle and she went to go upstairs because I believe that rifle was a sniper rifle. So they were going to kind of perch themselves in the area where they could see her and be able to get the shot out. And she turned back and looked at him and says, "Are you coming?" So I think there was a place where she not necessarily forgave Negan, but she understood what he was talking about, and she, appreciated it so that he could come up. But I think she still was going to be the person that took the shot. There is a scene later in the show while they're back at Alexandria where Maggie went to talk to Negan. So as you remember earlier, Negan had apologized for what he did to Glenn and to what it did to her and to Herschel. Maggie went to him to tell him, for the most part, that he and Annie could stay within the community if they wanted to. But she also wanted him to know that she won't ever be able to forgive him for what he did, because when she thinks of her husband, when she thinks of Glenn, she can't help but to remember what he did to him. The way he beat him, the way her husband died, calling her name, telling her that he loved her. And, I felt that. And she said, so I can't forgive you for that. But she wanted him to know that if he ever saw her drawn away, not being able to look at him, that she's just having that kind of a day. She's just thinking about Glenn and the things that happened to him. Maggie doesn't want that to rule who she is, and she's grateful to Negan for having saved Herschel, even though he did something so despicable when he killed Glenn and Abraham. So you can see Pamela standing in the estates behind the gate, looking at all of the people that are trying to get in, all of the Commonwealth citizens trying to get in away from these walkers that are coming. And she just kind of sitting there and let them eat cake. But then Mercer and his group of troops that were on his side, along with the group from Alexandria, they go in ready for the confrontation, and they see that there's all these community people standing there trying to get in the gate that they have all locked. And so Ezekiel is walking up. He's like, I'm going to open up that gate. Let those people inside. Let them be safe. And she's more inclined to have them shoot Ezekiel and shoot the folks from Alexandria and Mercer and his troops than she is to help the people in that community. And the troops that were loyal to her, ready to shoot people and everything else, decided that, this is not what we're going to do, and turned on her, following Mercer's lead. While the walkers had gotten pretty close, they were able to get the people in before the walkers got into the community. We were happy to see that Elijah and Jerry made it in with the community that was standing outside. So we got good news that Jerry and Elijah were. As they closed the fence and the walkers started to get to the front of it, kind of holding on to the fence and gnarling and growling, the stuff they do, we see that one of them is Hornsby. That was actually very satisfying for yours truly, because I just couldn't stand him for the whole time, and I knew I just needed for him to be unalived. As Pamela looks at him, she goes walking over to him. He's sitting there gnarling and biting, and she is inching her face close to him to get herself bitten. However, Maggie took a shot that hit one of the walkers, so it didn't hit her. It made her stop. What's up with that? I think Pamela wasn't sure what that crew was going to do to her, so she decided that maybe she'd become a walker or die that way. And Maggie didn't shoot her. She shot, they hit the walkers or the fence, but, we could have just hit Pamela and get it over with. At one point, Negan was talking about how she deserved to die. And I think that started to make Maggie think, because that's the way she felt about Negan. She got really angry with Rick and Michonne when they didn't kill Negan, because she felt like that's what he deserved. And I agree that he deserved it. But Negan saved Herschel. And had he not been around, then maybe her son wouldn't be here today. They end the Pamela story by setting the Commonwealth on fire. It was an amazing, fantastic explosion. And then Pamela gets put in jail. Rosita's story arc and how they completed her story. So far we had 2 character deaths. They were minor characters. They were important, but they were still minor characters. My prediction was that Rosita would die, but not this way. I think that she would die this way. I think she'd probably go out in a big blaze of glory. So Rosita, Gabriel, and Abraham went looking for Coco. I believe that she was like in a nursery, because when they went in there, it was her and I think it was another baby. They were kind of folded. Their cribs was like folded over them so that they couldn't be touched by walkers. They had to fight through the walkers, but they did get to the children, and Rosita was so happy to have gotten Coco, and I was happy for her. As they were escaping, Rosita actually put Coco underneath her shirt and under her coat, so it looked like she was pregnant. But they were trying to get to a window, and you would have to scale a pole in order to get to this window. So Eugene and Gabriel went up. Rosita's like, I'm cool, I'm good, I'll get up there, don't worry about me, you get up there. As she started to climb that pole or to scale that pole, she fell backwards. I mean, completely backwards. You could see her whole face and body falling into a bunch of walkers, but she got out of it. She got herself out of it, she got up the pole, and everything was okay. So we thought. I definitely thought that when Rosita fell into those walkers, that was going to be the death that they'd given them. Although it would be pretty sad if they give that death to Coco as well. But that's when I thought that it would happen. And then we have a scene with her and Eugene. He walks in the room. Rosita's just sitting there, just rubbing her baby's hair. She's so happy. We're happy for her that everything was okay. And then Eugene is like, you fell into that group of walkers, you got bit, right? So he wasn't like thinking that she might have gotten bit. He's saying, I know you got bit. And Rosita is affirmative by showing him the bite that she got like on her shoulder. As everybody is sitting in the living room, reconciling, knowing that they're free from that kind of tyranny, that they have their own communities again, Rosita was able to tell Gabe what happened, and they had just a little moment there. So it was so very sad. So the ending was really Rosita being put in bed in a room. She was actually got to sit there with Coco, and I kept going, please don't let that woman die inside the bed with Coco. But they didn't. But she got to say goodbye to the 3 main characters. So she got hugs with Carol and with Maggie. Daryl was there, but he just was standing within the doorway. Gabriel then took Coco away, and Rosita seemed to die in just a couple of minutes. I never realized how long. They didn't speak to how long it had been since they left the Commonwealth, but it just looked like Rosita died really quickly. So, R.I.P. Rosita. So that is the end of the Commonwealth story. We go to 1 year later, where we have plaques to commemorate our 3 fallen community members, Rosita, Jules, and Luke. Ezekiel has been named the governor, and Mercer has been the deputy governor or the lieutenant governor, and Carol has been named the director of operations, or the job that Hornsby held in the Commonwealth. Everyone is living life to the fullest in this new world. Everyone is happy and enjoying life. You see Daryl come back in town, so Daryl, as usual, is out and about, taking care of business, not really kind of sitting himself down in place anywhere. I know there are people that were hoping to see Daryl and Connie become a couple, but it was just more friendship, and it definitely feels like they're still very good friends. Daryl meets up with Carol, and he's just telling her how proud he is of her, that she's doing this job that Hornsby was supposed to be able to do for the Commonwealth, and she's doing it well, and people are good and they're safe. And then they just have a really genuine, special moment where they're just like, you're my best friend, and I love you. And he was saying, I love you to her too. So it was really very sweet. They've been together for so long, been having each other's back. And that's really special. Then Judith kind of walks up, and Daryl asks to keep an eye on RJ, which she greatly obliges, and to keep a good eye on Carol too. And, Judith, of course, will, but she tells Daryl that he deserves some happiness too. And he's like, I'll get that, because he's off. He's off to run. He'll see them in a little while, but he just is going to be gone from Alexandria. And he did tell her that he would be looking for Michonne and Rick. And then we have the montage of Rick and Michonne seemingly reading the letters that they'd written. I believe Michonne's letters were for her children, telling them, I missed you, I wish I was there with you, but I'm going to find Rick and then I'm going to get back to you. And then they had Rick, who was reading a letter that I believe that was something to Michonne, speaking to the strength of who they are. But I think the most poignant thing was Michonne when she said that she was going to find Rick because she knows that he's looking for them. And you see Rick walking around without no shoes on, because you know that Michonne has his boots. So Rick doesn't even have any shoes on. His feet is, walking the earth. And at one point, while he was walking, he was by the water, and you could hear a loudspeaker going, Rick, we caught you. Just give it up. Put your hands up and come in. You know what you have to do. And at that point, Rick just drops everything and puts his hands up. I think he just wants to make sure he can get back to his family, so he's not going to fight it. They're not going to kill him in that spot. Then we hear the phrase that Rick has always said, we are the ones who live, by different characters, including Michonne, and ending with him saying, we are the ones who live. The scene then goes to Judith and RJ just kind of standing there on the perch, and she looks down at him and said, we are the ones who live. And that is how the series ends. So that is the last episode and the end of The Walking Dead as we know it. And I just wanted to give a few thoughts. I am excited that it was able to end with the community being whole and them being able to do what they wanted with the three communities when it was Hilltop and Oceanside and Alexandria. They were able to do as one community and have their own governor and people that they knew that they could trust that the community would be fine. That's a good thing. But I thought the episode was a little lackluster. It didn't kind of go out with the kind of bang that the preceding episodes made you feel like it was going to go out with. But I do think that they believed that the most important thing was to end the story arc and then let you know what would happen with the community in the aftermath. What I didn't feel that it did was give you a real kind of a preview of what's going to happen with the Walking Dead, Dead City, the Maggie and Negan show that's going to be coming out next year, or it tell you much about the Daryl show, like where is he going? I heard, for example, that he was going to wake up and be in Paris, so how are we going to find out about the people that have him? Maybe it'll be in the Rick and Michonne show. Maybe it's the same people that same helicopter that came to pick Rick up that told him we caught you. Now come back with us. We know he's going to be on the road. We just don't know how he's going to end up in Europe. I was quite excited about seeing Rick and Michonne just because I felt like they should be there because it's the ending and this was the show. This was Rick's show at the very beginning and it held up great without him, but it's going to be good to see where he was and how he gets back. So I think that was a good preview for what Michonne and Rick are going to go through in their show. Rick is going to be caught by these people. Michonne is going to be trying to find them. At one point, they're going to meet up together, and we're going to be so excited. And then I had one big complaint that really wasn't the show, but the fact that there were so many commercials. We had 90 minutes for the show, but I swear it was only about as long as any other episode because the commercial breaks was longer than the show segments. Incredible. So overall, I give it a B. And the B really comes because Rick and Michonne ended up showing themselves in it. And that was heartwarming and it was fun. But I'm definitely going to miss these characters and miss this show coming on Sunday nights. And I'm also looking very much forward to the new shows. So tell me what you think. How are you feeling about the end of The Walking Dead? And are you excited to see the new shows? And which show are you anticipating the most? And if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe and click on notifications so that you know when I put out new videos. I will continue to do some videos on the finale, just some extra stuff, breaking down some things, and I will be prepared to do Fear and Dead City when that comes out in 2003. But in the meantime, I'm going to do some other video reviews. Not sure what it's going to be yet, but as long as you have those notifications on, I'll be able to share those with you too. So I'll see you next time.